Okay, Quiz 8 Solutions, problem 1. V of t, 0.2t cosine negative t over 7. You want to find v double prime of 3. So to do that, we have to do a few things. First, so 1, we have to find v prime of t. 2, v double prime of t, which is the derivative of v prime. And then 3, plug in a 3 and see what we get. Okay, so we're going to do that now. All right, so notice that we have a product. You could think of this as 0.2t as one function, and this is another function. So we have a product, so we got to use the product rule. All right, v prime of t, product rule says, okay, we got the derivative d dt of 0.2t times the second function unchanged, cosine negative t over 7, plus okay, so it's the derivative. So the derivative of a product of two functions, this function and that function, is the derivative of the first times the second unchanged plus the derivative of the second times the first unchanged. All right, so the derivative of 0.2t is 0.2. Okay, and I'm going to put the 0.2t in front. Okay, now the derivative of cosine is negative sine. So we got negative sine, negative t over 7. Now, okay, so negative t over 7, the derivative of that is negative 1/7. So negative 1/7. Okay, that's the chain rule. We've used the chain rule there. Derivative of cosine t is negative sine t, but we don't have a t there. We have a negative t over 7. So think of it like we treated that as a t. Whatever we treat as a t, we got to take the derivative of afterwards. So the derivative of negative t over 7, or negative 1/7 t, the derivative is negative 1/7. All right, so let's see, simplifying this a little bit, we get 0.2 cosine negative t over 7. So we have a negative times a negative is a positive, all right, so we just have positive 0.2, all right, let's move this 1/7 to the front. Okay, so like I was saying, the negatives cancel out, right? So a negative and a negative make a positive. Let's pull the 1/7 out front, put it there. And then we have t, the t there, don't forget that t, sine negative t over 7. Right, so that's v prime. Now we got to find v double prime, which is the derivative of this guy. All right, so let me write v prime up here. Two cosine sine okay, so the double prime of t, so we'll take the derivative of this and we'll take the derivative of this separate. Okay, notice that in this case over here we have a product. Right, we have a product of the function t and sine negative t over 7. You could think of it as this function and that function. Okay, so when we get to taking the derivative here, we're going to have to use the product rule again. All right, so again, the derivative of cosine is negative sine, so we get 0.2 times cosine is negative sine. Now the derivative of what we treated as a t, right? Derivative of cosine t is negative sine t, but this isn't a t, right? It's a negative t over 7. So we treat that as a t. To get down to here, we got to take the derivative of negative t over 7, which is negative 1/7. Okay, I'm going to take the derivative of this piece here. So I'm going to say d dt of t sine negative t over 7. All right, so simplifying a little bit here, let's see. Again, a negative and a negative, and the 1/7 we could bring up front. So we got 0.2 over 7 sine negative t over 7 plus 0.2 over 7. Now taking the derivative of t sine negative t over 7, that's a product, we got to use the product rule. Okay, so we've got d dt of t times sine unchanged negative t over 7 plus d dt of sine negative t over 7 times t unchanged. Okay. All right, so 0.2 over 7 sine negative t over 7 plus 0.2 over 7. I just took this thing out front and looked at just that piece there. Okay. Right. dt of t is 1. So we have 1 times sine negative t over 7. Plus, now put that t in front there. T times this derivative of sine negative t over 7. All right, derivative of sine is cosine. So we have cosine negative t over 7. And again, we treated, so the derivative of sine t is cosine t. That's not a t. So whenever we treat something as a t, we got to take its derivative afterwards. So the derivative of negative t over 7 is negative 1/7. All right, and all of that was, yep. Okay, whew. 0.2 over 7 sine negative t over 7 plus 0.2 over 7 out front. Let's see, we've got sine negative t over 7. Now, this minus 1/7, we can say minus 1/7 t times cosine negative t over 7. Okay, so now distributing this 0.2 over 7 through everything. Let's see, first 0.2 over 7 for this first guy, just rewrite him. Negative t over 7. Distributing the 0.2 over 7 to each of these terms. Right, we get plus 0.2 over 7 times sine negative t over 7. Now that times that is going to give me a negative 0.2 over 49. Right, 0.2 times 1, 7 times 7 is 49. T cosine negative t over 7. And last but not least, now notice that we have two of the same thing, right? We have two of the same thing, so we can add them together. Think of what two of the same thing, think of it as like terms. So we've got 2 times 0.2 over 7 sine negative t over 7. We've got two of the same thing, right? This one of these things, another of these things. So we've got two of them, that's combining like terms. Okay, now 2 times, and you can think of this here, right, as 2 over 1 time multiplying these fractions. 2 times 0.2 is 0.4. So our final answer for v double prime, so v double prime of t is 0.4 over 7 sine negative t over 7 minus 0.2 over 49 t cosine negative t over 7. All right, there's v double prime. Now you plug in v double prime of 3, put that into your calculator, and you get negative 0.035. So this last piece is just a calculation. The difficulty is getting to v double prime.